The idea that you should work smarter, not only harder, isn't anything new. When talking about the difference between smart and hard work, it's pretty simple to explain what working hard means. If you want to be successful in the long run, you have to put long hours into work. You have to start early, before all other people, and you have to stay up late, when everyone else is already enjoying their afternoons and evenings. On the other hand, it's really hard to find very clear guidelines on what working smart really means and how it's different from hard work. It's very obvious that even if you're determined that nobody will outwork you, you still have maximum limits regarding working hours that you reach pretty fast, and there's always someone who is willing to sleep less than you. On top of that, many people work hard, but only a few become really successful. That's because smart work is what makes the difference.
A balanced diet is one that fulfills all of a person's nutritional needs. Humans need a certain amount of calories and nutrients to stay healthy. A balanced diet provides all the nutrients a person requires, without going over the recommended daily calorie intake. By eating a balanced diet, people can get the nutrients and calories they need and avoid eating junk food, or food without nutritional value. The United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, used to recommend following a food pyramid. However, as nutritional science has changed, they now recommend eating foods from the 5 groups and building a balanced plate. According to the USDA's recommendations, half of a person's plate should consist of fruits and vegetables. The other half should be made up of grains and protein. They recommend accompanying each meal with a serving of low-fat dairy or another source of the nutrients found in dairy.
It is important for people to maintain blood glucose levels within a narrow range, despite intervals between meals or the occasional consumption of meals with substantial carbohydrates. This maintenance of balance can be compared to the Oriental philosophy of yin and yang, the two primal, opposing yet complementary forces found in all things in the universe, which are considered to have been separated from one unified whole. Similarly, there are two types of mutually opposing but complementary groups of metabolic hormones affecting blood glucose levels: the catabolic hormones, such as glucagon, growth hormone, and catecholamines, which increase blood glucose, and one anabolic hormone, insulin, which decreases blood glucose. Insulin is used medically to treat some forms of diabetes mellitus in humans. Patients with type 1 diabetes mellitus depend on external insulin, most commonly injected subcutaneously, for their survival because of an absolute deficiency of the hormone. Patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus have insulin resistance or relatively low insulin production, or both. Some type 2 diabetics eventually require insulin when other medications become insufficient in controlling blood glucose levels.
The effects of global warming influence the temperature of the Earth's water, land and atmosphere year by year owing to numerous human-made and natural reasons. The effects of global warming are both long-term as well as short-term. However, the long-term effects are quite more substantial. A decrease in the ice shield nearby the poles is one momentous long-term effect. In reality, the poles are melting. The effects of global warming are mainly categorized as natural and anthropogenic effects of global warming, out of which the anthropogenic impact is the most critical.
The question hour, calling attention notices and half-an-hour discussion are some of the devices to seek information from the government about its policies and performance in various spheres. Of these the most important is the question hour. The first hour of a sitting in both houses is allotted for asking and answering of questions. The purpose of the questions is to obtain information on a matter of public importance or to ventilate a grievance. The question hour keeps the ministers on their toes. It is a valuable protection against injustice and slackness on the part of the government.
Antonio is a wealthy merchant in the city of Venice. He is a leading citizen, commanding great respect. When he is first introduced to us in the play, he is in a melancholy mood. His friends asked him if he is feeling melancholy because all his ships are at sea, facing all sorts of dangers from storms and from rocks, but he tells them that he is not at all feeling worried about the safety of his ships. He then tells them that his melancholy is something natural to him, something temperamental or inborn. He says that he looks upon this world as the stage of a theatre on which every man has to play a part, his own part being that of a sad man. Thus, melancholy may be regarded as one of the principal traits of his character.
Internet is a global system that can be used for sharing information, providing worldwide services and communication. Daily updates are easily and instantly available on the Internet. Also, you can search for any information you are looking for in the Internet. In today's world, all companies are able to operate only with the use of Internet. A lot of products and services are sold and provided through Internet today. Once upon a time, telephone was considered a fast mode of communication. Now, Internet has enormously emerged and replaced telephone as swift mode of communication.
Fossils, the preserved remains of animal and plant life, are mostly found embedded in sedimentary rocks. Of the sedimentary rocks, most fossils occur in shale, limestone and sandstone. Earth contains three types of rocks: metamorphic, igneous and sedimentary. With rare exceptions, metamorphic and igneous rocks undergo too much heat and pressure to preserve fossils. So, most fossils are found in sedimentary rocks, where gentler pressure and lower temperature allows preservation of past life forms. Fossils become a part of sedimentary rocks when sediments such as mud, sand, shells and pebbles cover plant and animal organisms and preserve their characteristics through time.
Children can be demanding when they notice their friends have something they don't. Without a uniform, the potential for this to happen with clothing increases. Children may put their parents under pressure to buy them a new wardrobe every season or capitalize on every new trend that sweeps through the school. With school uniforms, economics is made easier for parents. You know exactly what to buy and when to buy it, and often uniform can be used for more than one school year. School uniforms are robust and designed for longevity. They'll last much longer than your child's other clothing, helping you save money by not having to replace them as often.
Leukocytes are further classified into two subcategories called granulocytes, which consist of neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils, and agranulocytes, which consist of lymphocytes and monocytes. The formed elements can be separated from plasma by centrifuge, where a blood sample is spun for a few minutes in a tube to separate its components according to their densities. RBCs are denser than plasma, and so become packed into the bottom of the tube to make up 45% of total volume. This volume is known as the hematocrit. WBCs and platelets form a narrow cream-colored coat known as the buffy coat immediately above the RBCs. Finally, the plasma makes up the top of the tube, which is a pale yellow color and contains just under 55% of the total volume.
Communications satellites are essentially used to relay radio waves from one place on Earth to another, catching signals that fire up to them from a ground station, an Earth-based satellite dish, amplifying them so they have enough strength to continue, and modifying them in other ways, and then bouncing them back down to a second ground station somewhere else. Those signals can carry anything radio signals can carry on the ground, from telephone calls and internet data to radio and TV broadcasts. Communications satellites essentially overcome the problem of sending radio waves, which shoot in straight lines, around a curved planet, intercontinental signals, in other words. They are also useful for communicating to and from remote areas where ordinary wired or wireless communications can't reach. Calling with a traditional landline, wired phone, you need a very convoluted network of wires and exchanges to make a complete physical circuit all the way from the sender to the receiver. With a cell phone, you can communicate anywhere you can get a signal, but you and the receiver both still need to be within range of cell phone masts. However, with a satellite phone, you can be on top of Mount Everest or deep in the Amazon jungle. You're entirely free from any kind of telecommunications infrastructure, which gives you geographic freedom and an instant ability to communicate.
Synthesis is an important activity for scientific advancement, and bioscience fills an important publishing niche for synthesis in ecology and conservation biology. In the mid-1990s, the National Science Foundation, NSF, established the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis, NCES, to foster collaboration among researchers and to encourage the use of existing data to seek general patterns and principles beyond what can be learned from site-specific studies. At the time, this was a shocking and novel initiative. In a recent bioscience article, Halpern and colleagues reviewed the history of synthesis, noting its ubiquity in ecology and arguing that NCES has played a critical role in accelerating knowledge.
Milky Way Galaxy, large spiral system consisting of several hundred billion stars, one of which is the Sun. It takes its name from the Milky Way, the irregular luminous band of stars and gas clouds that stretches across the sky as seen from Earth. Although Earth lies well within the Milky Way Galaxy, sometimes simply called the Galaxy, astronomers do not have as complete an understanding of its nature as they do of some external star systems. A thick layer of interstellar dust obscures much of the galaxy from scrutiny by optical telescopes, and astronomers can determine its large-scale structure only with the aid of radio and infrared telescopes, which can detect the forms of radiation that penetrate the obscuring matter.
Vegetatively propagated crops are globally significant in terms of current agricultural production, as well as for understanding the long-term history of early agriculture and plant domestication. Today, significant field crops include sugar cane, potato, manioc, bananas and plantains, sweet potato, yams and taro. In comparison with sexually reproduced crops, especially cereals and legumes, the domestication syndrome in vegetatively propagated field crops is poorly defined.
Due to ever-changing consumer expectations and the competition in the global economy, the science of organizational change is itself constantly changing and evolving. The human element of change management may be one of the most difficult to navigate because people do not inherently like change or adjust to it well. Most change methods agree that change is difficult and cumbersome. Therefore, involving people early on, implementing process, and continuously adjusting for improvement is critical to success. This includes thorough planning, buy-in, process, resources, communication, and constant evaluation.
The abundance and dynamics of a population place an important constraint on fisheries, but aquatic populations do not live in isolation. They exist as components of a frequently complex ecosystem, consisting of biological components which may feed on, be fed on by, or compete with a given stock or population. Even those populations which are not directly linked through the food web may indirectly affect each other through their direct interactions with predators, prey or competitors of the other. The physical component of the ecosystem, the water itself, the substrate, inflows of freshwater or nutrients and other non-biological processes may also be very important. Different substrates may be essential for the production of food organisms, for shelter, or as spawning or nursery grounds.
Technological developments, as well as market trends, demand a constantly evolving goat milk industry, and Israel stays ahead of the curve to remain a global competitor in the market. In Israel, 11.1 million liters of goat's milk are produced annually. There are over 2,400 families raising small ruminants, the term used for sheep and goats. There are approximately 520,000 sheep and goats in the country, and the number is ever growing. These farms usually produce anywhere between 50,000 to 200,000 liters of goat's milk yearly. 30 of these farms are closed farms, which process their own milk, whether it is organically or conventionally, and combine their efforts to incorporate agro-tourism components into their farming.
India is the fifth largest economy in the world, with a GDP of $2.87 trillion in 2019, more than 4% higher than in 2018. Because of its large population, India has the lowest per capita GDP on our list. India's economy is a mixture of traditional village farming and handicrafts alongside booming modern industry and mechanized agriculture. India is a major exporter of technology services and business outsourcing, and the service sector makes up a large share of its economic output. Liberalization of India's economy since the 1990s has boosted economic growth, but inflexible business regulation, widespread corruption, and persistent poverty pose challenges to ongoing expansion.
The atmosphere is a huge blanket of air that surrounds the Earth. It provides us the air we breathe and protects us from the harmful effects of the sun's rays. Atmosphere consists of mainly nitrogen, 78%, oxygen, 21%, argon, 0.93%, carbon dioxide, 0.03%, and other gases like helium, ozone, argon and hydrogen, 0.04%. Nitrogen is very important for plant survival. They cannot take nitrogen directly from the air. Bacteria that live in the soil and roots of some plants take nitrogen from the air and change its form so that plants can use it. Oxygen is the second most plentiful gas in the air. Humans and animals take oxygen from the air. Green plants produce oxygen during photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide is another important gas. Green plants use carbon dioxide to make their food and release oxygen. Humans or animals release carbon dioxide. The amount of carbon dioxide released by humans or animals seems to be equal to the amount used by the plants, which make a perfect balance.
There are two types of fat that can be found in food, saturated and unsaturated. Unsaturated fat can help lower cholesterol and provide essential fatty acid, omega-3. Found in oily fish, such as mackerel, tuna and salmon, avocado, nuts and olive oil. Unsaturated fat can also help the body absorb vital vitamins, such as vitamin A, D and E. Saturated fat can be found in cakes, biscuits, crisps, hard cheese and pastry. Eating an excess of saturated fat can lead to health problems. It can raise cholesterol in the blood, which, in turn, increases the risk of developing heart disease.
Sand the stones and gems for shaping. Begin with a coarse grain of sandpaper, and moisten the paper with water. Begin sanding until most of the rough edges begin to become smooth and rounded, or until you see the desired shape of the rock. Be discriminating with your grain of sandpaper, as some stones and gems are softer than others. You may find that softer gems or stones do not require the coarsest grain of sandpaper. Sand the stones and gems again to prepare them for polishing. Begin with a medium grain sandpaper, and sand the rock down to both its desired shape and smoothness. As you see your desired results, use lighter grain sandpaper, finishing with ultra-fine grain.
Sleep disorders is the collective name for all troubles with sleep, and understanding what they are is the best way to find out if you or a loved one may be struggling with one. One of the most commonly known sleep disorders is insomnia, which is not measured by the amount of sleep a person loses, but rather by how that influences their daily tasks negatively. Hypersomnia, or oversleeping, may not be talked about so often, but it is just as serious. Many also struggle with nightmares, which can turn the joy of sleep into a frightening ordeal. There are also other sleep disorders that are worth learning about.
Obesity can be defined as the clinical condition where accumulation of excessive fat takes place in the adipose tissue, leading to worsening of health condition. Usually, the fat is deposited around the trunk and also the waist of the body, or even around the periphery. Obesity is actually a disease that has been spreading far and wide. It is preventable, and certain measures are to be taken to curb it to a greater extent. Both in the developing and developed countries, obesity has been growing far and wide, affecting the young and the old equally. The alarming increase in obesity has resulted in stimulated death rate and health issues among the people. There are several methods adopted to lose weight, and they include different diet types, physical activity, and certain changes in the current lifestyle. Many of the companies are into minting money with the concept of inviting people to fight obesity.
Tunnels are the passages that are meant for transportation. It is a transit constructed below the earth or the water surface. They are constructed to facilitate the transfer of goods, people, sewage, water, cables, etc. Many times, some tunnels are constructed for the defense system of the country, and they are the secret tunnels. India holds the honor of having the world's longest highway tunnel recently constructed in the country and is named as Atal Tunnel. The Atal Tunnel is constructed in Himachal Pradesh, under Rohtang Pass, which is located in the Pitpanjal range of Himalayas.
At work, a nature photographer can easily expose his or her subject animal to its predators or prevent it from getting food. They can also accidentally step on a rare flower, which would take years to grow back, or it won't revive at all. To avoid cases like these, many nature photography associations and their members compiled a set of ethical practices, which protect the well-being of all parties involved in the matter. Apart from the above-mentioned knowledge of the animal behaviors and the fragility of the ecosystem, the ethics insist on the safe and comfortable distance between the man and the animal and encourages the former not to expose themselves while working, in order not to scare the latter. Nature photography is all about respect of the wildlife, the law, the environment, and fellow photographers, and as long as they follow the rules, they will be able to obtain their images without an issue.